interesting things that have happened. In fact, yesterday, whilst government was announcing that, the finance ministry also issued a statement, very interesting statement that they put out about the restriction that was placed on borrowing from the market. In fact, issuing bonds, and that restriction has been 3 years in the supposed to expire after 3 years. That has expired. So it means that we can, okay, let me not say a lot. I speak to Fred Amissah, who is technical advisor to the Minister of Finance. Thank you very much for your time, Fred, and good morning to you.
Good morning, Senna. Good morning, listeners.
I hope you're well.
I'm well. Yourself?
I am also doing well. You at the Finance Ministry seems to be doing a lot. But let's start with this one that was announced yesterday. First, explain to us what this restriction is. Was it imposed, self-imposed? Was it imposed by the Bank of Ghana? Was it imposed by the IMF? How did this restriction come about?
So invariably, it was self-imposed, and I will explain. What it is that, self-imposed means that we caused it up, we called it upon ourselves. What it is that we all know what happened in 2023, where the economy had collapsed. It was in a comatose state, and we rushed to the IMF in an ambulance, figuratively, for a bailout. And as part of the conditionality, using the word conditionality advisedly, as part of the conditionalities, the fund required us to do what we call a domestic debt restructuring. And mind you, this is the first ever Ghana has been required to do a domestic debt restructuring. Of all the previous 16 times we have been to the IMF, there was never a requirement to do a domestic bond restructuring. Now, that should give an indication of the extent of the role of how deep the economic paralysis was at the time, which required that something that is reserved for the very worst of situations was given to us. It's like you go to a hospital and you are in so much pain and they graduate it. Sometimes you go to the highest level of painkillers. That is where we were. So they had to give a very hard dosage of economic restructuring medication to us as a country. So this is where we were. And we saw the result. The result was, of course, a default. Let's just put it that way. What economic theory has taught us all these years that government securities were risk-free. The then government taught us and showed us that no, economic theory is all wrong. And they proved to us that they were not risk-free. So you realize that it caused a lot of challenges in the economy. Pensioners were picketing for their money. We were not getting money to pay them. Banks were going back and forth with on their books. In fact, if you check 2023, if you check bank books, the impairment banks took as a result of the domestic debt exchange was nearly 20 billion Ghana cedis, far in excess of how much just the banks, far in excess of how much we could have needed to salvage the situation. So the banks alone, as a result of the domestic debt exchange, had over 20 billion, nearly about 20 billion, wiped off their balance sheet.
20 billion?
Yes, nearly 20 billion. If you check the books of banks in 2023, 2024, you saw the impairment they took as a result of the domestic debt exchange. You'll be surprised. Nearly 20 billion Ghana cedis. And you see, so I'm bringing this out for us to put perspective how difficult and how dangerous that thing was. And that if something wasn't done in 2025 when we took over, the economy would have collapsed. So if you are going to do such a thing, the IMF replied that no, your situation is so dire. You cannot keep on borrowing. So you are hot. You are banned from issuing new bonds. You are banned for issuing bonds. You are banned for issuing bonds because your debt was also unsustainable. You couldn't sustain your debt. You couldn't service your debt. You couldn't pay pensioners. You couldn't pay your other government obligations. So the fact of the matter is that what has happened yesterday, or the announcement we put out yesterday, is a very significant information that shows that, yes, we were in a situation, and Ghanaians shouldn't forget, yes, we're in a situation, a very dire situation, but because of better management, better public finance allocation and reallocation, we have come out of it. So it is an indication, this is the clearest also indication that the economy is now on a sustainable path. Our debt to GDP is now around 45%. We are servicing our debt. In fact, a lot of the repayments that fall due, we pay before the time. We just about last month around December, we paid over $700 million. About 2 weeks ago, we paid over 10 billion Ghana cedis. So we are saying that we have demonstrated that we have and we are in a position to better manage the finances of this economy, and that the market should come. The market should come. Every interest payment that will fall due, we have made allocation for it. We are going to pay. And the harm that we created in 2027 and 2028, we have prepared for it, and we will make do when the obligations fall due. Sorry, we will make do our obligations when they fall due.
And many of that are coming up because the predictions are from this year. In fact, last year you started paying. This year you pay a little more. Next year it will a little more. Then I think going forward it will normalize. But I wanted to find out, is it an automatic expiry that once 3 years was over, you could just go back to the market? What were you supposed to do before announcing this?
Let's not forget that the IMF program had a benchmark. In that, if you were not meeting the benchmark, you were not going to have a clean day of health. So it is not automatic. By the end of 2024, the fiscal deficit, in fact, the primary surplus on commitment basis, which shows government, all of government expenditure compared to your revenue, less interest payment. What the government was supposed to achieve was a surplus of 0.5% of GDP. At the end of 2024, it was in excess of a deficit of 3%. So the IMF program had derailed. So I'm bringing it into perspective to say that if your program had derailed, you were not meeting the benchmark, a reworking of the conditionality would have been required, which would have extended certain conditions, including this one. As at the end of last year, from a deficit position of over 3%, we have done a surplus of 2.6%. Mind you, the target was to do a surplus of 1.5%. Now we did 2.6%, signaling an improved public financial management, which then shows that, or which then proves to our partners, including the IMF, that we have a better handle of the economy, we have a better handle of our public finances, and they are confident that we, when the restrictions are lifted or when this expiry is done, there's no need for an extension, There's no need of a renegotiation. We just have to let us be, because we have proven that we can manage the finances of this economy.
I see. So is that your signal to us that you are returning to the bond market?
Yes and no. What it does is that it gives us the freedom to better manage our finances, or better know how or which market we want to borrow, or we want to go to fund the budget. Hitherto, you recall that because the government only had the treasury bill market to borrow from, and because of their appetite for expenditure, you saw the treasury bill, the 91 treasury bill rate at the end of December 2024, it was 27.73. The 364-day was over 30%, because the treasury bill market was the only way government could borrow from. We have been shut out from the international debt market. We've been restricted from issuing local bonds. So they had only option. The only option left was the treasury market. So they were borrowing like crazy from the treasury bill market, which hiked the rate, which increased the cost of government borrowing. What this does to us is that it gives us the option, but not necessarily to say that we will go. We have a medium term public debt strategy. What we will do is that we'll look at the medium debt the strategy, places where we need to go long. We have the option to go long dated. That is the tenor. We are not restricted only to the treasury market, which is 91 days and 182 days and all those kind of things. So what it is that it gives us the option. It doesn't necessarily mean that, this is a free-for-all borrowing period.
Because there are many analysts who have watched and said typically this is what new governments do. They come into power, do some austerity, and then announce that things are looking good, and then say, then return to borrowing of the same levels or sometimes worse, and create the same situation they inherited that they were trying to solve. Are you suggesting that you won't try that?
Senna, this is a different regime. This is a different era. If you look at the PFM reform we have put in place, it is impossible, practically impossible, for this finance minister or the finance minister coming after him to do what we have requested. Because we have amended our PFM and we have introduced a fiscal rule which requires the finance minister to maintain a primary surplus on commitment basis, surplus at 1.5%. So you are required by law to be disciplined. And if you don't follow that, if you breach that, you'll be censored. The finance minister will be censored. So because we knew that this day would come, that is why last year we introduced this. It was this finance minister and President Mahama who introduced this fiscal rule, amended our PFM Act, and made it into law that fiscal indiscipline is a thing of the past. So it's actually a crime for a finance minister to be reckless. So, Senna, the market should be calm. Nothing reckless will happen. We have shown our commitment to it by how we have managed the economy in the past 12 months. We have also shown our commitment to it by enshrining fiscal discipline into law and making it very hard and a censurable offense for a finance minister to breach that. So we should be rest assured. Nothing of that will happen.
Very interesting. How has it been like having to depend largely on the treasury bill market?
Senna, you know, treasury bill market, we took the 91 day bill that we took at 27.73. It is now at 5.3.
Oh.
Look at it. Yes. Over nearly
5.3.
Yes. Nearly 22 percentage points drop. 22. The reason is that we have rationalized the expenditure. If you look at the sort of consolidation that was being done by the previous government, Everybody was asking, why don't you cut expenditure? Why don't you cut expenditure? There was a lot of wasteful expenditure. I don't want to remind you about National Cathedral. I don't want to remind you about the cost of the Boteman Sports Stadium project. I don't want to remind you on so many things which you can give me, Sana, you can give me a whole list of them. I don't want to remind you. I don't want to remind you also about the extra budgetary expenditure where contracts were issued left, right, and center with no recourse to the budget. When President Mahama took office, the first thing he did was that make sure he introduced what we call the commitment authorization, i.e., he made expenditure rationalization the head or the lead of the fiscal consolidation. That is why you realize that we're able to remove a lot of taxes. The e-levy is gone, the profit levy is gone, the betting tax is gone, the emissions levy is gone, and the VAT has been reduced from the effective rate of being about over 21%, nearly 22%, to now 20%. We are able to do all that because we have rationalized expenditure. We are spending, we are putting our money where the economy really needs. So those days that any agency, any ministry can sign a contract with no recourse to the budget, whether it's been approved by Parliament, whether it is in their budget or not, it is over. So you are realizing that we are saving on a lot of money. Ghana's problem, yes, we have a revenue challenge, was largely, or it's been largely expenditure. Expenditure was led to run amok. Everybody was spending anywhere. Everybody was spending anywhere. And that's the discipline President Mahama has introduced, which has required that if you want to procure anything, first, get an authorization from the finance minister that yes, it is in your budget, number one. And secondly, there is money to pay for it. So what you are going to realize going forward is that, and this is what happens everywhere across the world, government contracts are going to be hard to come by. But when you get government contracts, you are 100% assured that you are going to get payment. So you will not do government projects and then many years down the line you are still chasing your contract. We've heard about contractors who have even died and left their monies and their children are now the ones chasing the money. Those are supposed to be things of the past. So, Senator, rest assured, what we have done is to ensure that we live within our means, okay, and ensure that we spend what we have and we spend good. Senator, have you heard our children in school complaining that there's no food? Hello?
Yes. No,
Have
not
you heard
yet.
that
Not recently.
Have you heard that hospitals are complaining that they have not paid their NHIA claim?
No.
Have you heard that capitation gas is in arrears?
Hmm.
You see, we have gotten, it seems that in just 1 year, we've gotten used to it. So, in the past where the children were eating some of the soup, it was like mirror. So we all saw the video.
Hmm.
These days, they eat jollof, they eat chicken. And it's no longer news. Of course, because bad news sells. But the good news almost it doesn't get reported. It shows how governments have prioritized essential spending against frivolous spending. So this is where we are, Senna.
I see. But before I let you go, one question that about, like I said, you've been doing quite a lot in recently. One of the things the finance minister took to Parliament is this announcement of that you want to build our reserves to 15 months of import cover. A critic of this move is Mr. Franklin Kujo.
Yes.
He says, would you be doing this alongside solving all the problems you're currently solving? Because we're just talking about what was being done in the education sector. You yourself was talking about the fact that we've been able to calm the front in the health and the education sector, among others. He's asking what is the opportunity cost of doing what you're going to do, building up the reserves? Would anything else be affected?
Senna, we can walk and chew gum. Jesus said, this you need to do, not leaving the others undone. Matthew 23:23. What we are going to do, we are not saying that we are stopping essential expenditure on social spending and then we are now going to focus our resources on gathering reserves. The thing is that, Senna, this country for many years has been running to the IMF anytime something happens. Haven't we learned anything? You know that as for macroeconomic uncertainty and volatility in the external sector, today Iran and America all over, these things affect your economy because we all deal with oil. If oil shipments are not coming, what will you do? If you are not able to send your cocoa, if ports are closed and you are not able to send your cocoa and sell, what will you do? So it is important that we build an economic war chest because we may never know when the next crisis will come and how long it's going to last. You see, we are now at 5.7 months of income power, far above the traditional threshold of 3 months. But that is not enough. Look at how COVID brought us. And economic or history has shown us that almost every 20 or so or 20 odd years, there is a major crisis, either health, economic, natural disaster, something happens that throws every economy out of gear. It is those who are prepared for it who survive. So this is where we want to be. We don't want to go cap in hand when the next crisis hits. And the next crisis, it will hit. We don't want to go cap in hand. We have not learned from previous crises. And that is why we keep going back to the IMF. We keep going back to everybody begging when crisis hits. We say never again. Never again. Let us build an economic watches to defend this economy when the next crisis comes. And the next crisis comes, it will. As long as the sun rises, crisis, external crisis will happen, whether you like it or not. But ask yourself, when it happens, will you be able to withstand it? So yes, we'll build schools. Yes, we'll build roads. Yes, we'll build hospitals. But we are also going to build an economic fortress to defend this country when the crisis hits. That's what we are doing.
And to conclude, because this is one of the things he raises, that the last time your boss was deputy minister, in the lead up to 2016, and you said they were building heritage fund, stabilization fund in case of a crisis. That you built everything, left it, handed it over to the New Patriotic Party. They took it. When COVID hit, they spent the thing in the stabilization fund, but we still ended up with the debt overhang that you are now trying to tackle. He says, perhaps you may not be in power the next time, so spend the money now so that we don't find ourselves in the same situation. We'll build the reserves for crisis, but we still end up in a cost one situation. So spend the money.
It's sad how our federal government has become a byword and has been the benchmark for how not to govern a country. It's interesting, even the way you put your question. Yes. So you see, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't save. Senna, it doesn't mean that even your personal finances, you have a lot of needs, but you still have to save some money. Even in our personal finances, you still have to save. Senna, don't we buy suit box for our children? We buy suit, even children, we buy suit box for them. So how much more a country? This is buying a suit box for our country. So as to when if somebody will come and deplete in the past, let's leave the our children in the future to determine, because I don't know whether we'll be around, whether you will be around, Senna, but at least let us give them the option that there is a savings for them that when crisis hits, they can fall on it. Akufo-Addo and his government did damage to us. They have scarred us emotionally, but we shouldn't use them as a benchmark. Unfortunately, let us I don't want to say this, but let us know that there is a way to govern, and that is what we are doing. As for what we experienced that time, it wasn't it. It was something else. So let us not use them as a benchmark. Let us come to basics and admit that, in fact, even our personal life, we have to get savings. How much more a country? Now you can say that, oh, if you say a savings, well, then the level of savings. What we are also saying is that this country is growing. Now our economy is projected to be $140 billion. The country is growing. As the economy is growing, as the economy grows, population grows, we are projected to hit about 40 million in the next 7 to 10 years. So what the buffers we are building, they are not outrageous. We have to take into consideration population growth. We have to take into consideration the rate of growth of the economy. So they are not outrageous. They are needed. They are the basic minimum levels needed to defend this country when a major crisis hits. When the whole world is down, we would need it. And besides, let me also say this: part of these reserves will sit with the Bank of Ghana for them to keep on behalf of the nation. What we are saying is that for you to touch these reserves, you first of all need parliamentary approval. Cabinet approval, and then you need parliamentary approval. So there's that transparency. So there is not that we don't have the period where there is opacity, where what it is that maybe a few people will sit somewhere and say that, oh, let's deplete the result. No, it's not going to happen. We've made it into law. We've made it as part of the policy. You would have to get, first of all, cabinet approval and parliamentary approval. What is the alternative? The alternative is for us to keep borrowing to build reserves. And as part of the policy, we did a desktop analysis of what has been the cost of we borrowing to build reserves. I can share the figures with you. But even the Franklin Templeton debt alone, the 2.25 billion that Franklin Templeton brought in 2017, which generated a lot of brouhaha, we have paid in excess of 7.6 billion interest alone. Ghana cedis in interest alone. So the alternative, the opportunity cost of not doing that is huge. It's huge. So we should look at the opportunity cost of not doing it, not against the opportunity cost of doing it. For the opportunity cost of doing it, we are not saying that we are going to stop doing the other things. Like I said, we can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Thank you. Thank you very much for speaking to us, Fred.
Thank you very much.
Fred Amissah is technical advisor to the Minister of Finance. Okay, so two things we spoke to him on. The restrictions that were basically self-imposed. In fact, if you borrow to a certain point, nobody will lend to you anymore. If they will lend to you, they impose a very high cost to make sure that when they get their money, that is when they will get their money with some level of to make up for. They know that you're not credit-worthy anymore. So this is Ghana self-imposition, also the IMF making that demand of us. But in order to get out of this, we needed to have done something with the economy. We seem to have done that largely in the first year of the Mahama administration. So they announced that restriction it has now expired. Whether or not they will go into the bond market, it says they will do as and when. They will be cautious of the past. They will learn from the past to be cautious in the future. So we'll see what will happen moving forward. That's Fred Amissah, like I said, from the Finance Ministry. Like Mr. Franklin Kujo said yesterday, if we had that way, we would tell them, spend it too. Spend it. People who follow. Anyway.